Ever heard of people saying trucking is an easy job? Today we're busting the biggest myths in trucking industry. The first myth that I have for you here is that everyone thinks trucking is an easy job. You're just sitting in your seat, driving, and that's all you do. Even if you're an over-the-road driver, if there is no driver assist, and most local jobs, as far as truck driving goes, there will be some kind of manual labor, loading or unloading involved. But even if you're over-the-road driver, if you're going all over the United States, the stress and the regulations that the DOT and FMCSA have on drivers and then even their companies sometimes can be really unbearable. There are so many other physical demands as well, because drivers are challenged with not moving that much when over the road. So a lot of drivers will get overweight, or they will be on an unhealthy diet. So that's another challenge for truck drivers. Now, there are long hours involved. Drivers are legally allowed to work/drive for 70 hours in a week. Most jobs out there are 40 hours a week. Part-time jobs are even less. When we are talking about overtime, people tend to have like 5 to 10 hours of overtime, but drivers, they can do 70, and sometimes they even do more. Way more. So that's a lot of hours for you of working. Sometimes they have to drive deep into the night. And sometimes they're tired, but they have to still make it to their appointments. A lot of times they're away from their family, so that's another big stressful thing for them. I remember just last year, it was winter here in Michigan, and I was delivering to a local route, and I had to deliver back country roads, and there was a big snowstorm. It was actually an ice storm, and nothing was cleaned. There was no salt on the road, but I still had to make it. And I was driving 5 to 10 miles an hour. There was no one on the road, and you can't even tell what's road and what are the fields. So that can be very stressful. Another myth is that truck drivers are not making enough money. Now, there are some things here that I want to mention. A lot of drivers are underpaid, that's for sure, especially right now. But it all depends on the lanes, the companies, where you live, and a lot of different factors. For example, local drivers tend to get paid by hour, and a lot of them will have overtime. So if they drive like 50, 60 or more hours a week, they can get a lot of overtime, and they can get benefits and insurance and other things. But a lot of drivers that drive over the road or regional, they're paid by mile. And the more miles they drive, the more they're paid. Now, if there are no loads, if they have to sit, then they're not getting paid. Even sometimes when they load or unload, they don't get paid for that time. So some drivers, especially beginners, or drivers who go to these large companies, they may make less money than the other drivers. But owner-operators who have their own trucks and drivers who have experience and got themselves some good lanes, they can make some really good money. The next myth that I have for you is that autonomous truck driving will replace drivers, which is not true. This will not happen anytime soon. I made a lot of videos about that, and even some car makers are backing off with their EVs, let alone trucking companies. There are some experimental routes down in the southwest, and we are hearing these news, but those are really exceptions, and these areas are not that populated, and they're just testing everything down there. Once you go to more dense areas, you will need truck drivers to actually deliver these loads. A lot of companies most companies don't have access. That's very easy for a self-driving truck. So anytime soon, at least in our lifetime, there will be no autonomous trucking. Maybe some exceptions on long highway stretches, but still someone has to assist that technology, and that will not be 100% automated. The next thing that I have for you is here, trucking is a man's job. There are so many female drivers out there. If you're a truck driver, you will notice that. And female drivers are also driving buses and other heavy equipment. So it's not strictly a man's job. Most drivers are men. Because it is more appealing to them, but nothing is preventing any gender to drive a truck. There are also a lot of female drivers that have their own YouTube channels, and you can take a look at those channels and then you will see for yourself. The next thing that I have for you is that truck drivers don't have a work-life balance. Now, some people who cannot organize their driving time, or if they are working in a company that does not bring them home often, that's different. But most drivers can indeed organize their work-life balance. I have a few owner-operators here, and they have been with me for at least 10 years. And what they're doing is they're coming from West Michigan to East Coast, to Buffalo, Rochester, New York, that area, and that's like 500 to 600 miles one way. So they can go there, come back the next night, and usually they're home during the week on a Wednesday or on a Tuesday night. And then they do another round trip like that, and they're home every weekend. A lot of drivers will go out and drive 5 days a week and come back on a weekend, so they have their schedule. Some drivers prefer not to come home every weekend. Some drivers want to go out and make as much money as they can. So it all depends on the driver and a little bit on the company as well. If you're driving for a company and you're a company driver, then you have to, before you start, you have to talk to them about their home time and whether you can organize it and adjust it to what they're expecting from you to do. But owner-operators and a lot of company drivers too, they can indeed be home often if they prefer to do that. Now, it's not just about home time, about you or us wanting to be with our families or get some rest. It has to do a lot with money. So trucking is that kind of job. You are out there, but you are there to make money, not because it's fun. So if anything you do that has to do with money, of course, has to be organized. And the more you organize it, the better work-life balance you have. Myth number 6 is that all trucking companies are the same, and that's not true. Sometimes when people get angry, they will say, oh yeah, all these people are the same. But I worked in a few companies and none of them were the same. I was fortunate enough to mostly work in good companies when I was working for someone else. And you can tell by the company culture what it's going to be like for you as a driver. If the manager is a good guy or a lady, then most people will treat you well. If a manager is toxic and giving everyone trouble, most likely this will show on others as well. So that will be the company culture, whether they want to admit it or not. But if the management is good and treats people well, everyone, most people will be good. And like I said, I drove in a few companies that they were very good people. Here in our company, in Usora Express, we treat drivers with respect. I used to drive, like I said, so I know how it is out there on the road. So there is no yelling, swearing, fighting here. We will tell someone like if we think something is wrong, but we also want you as a driver to come back to us and tell us, hey, this is wrong, I think this is wrong, and I don't like this. Can we maybe do it different in the future? So I think as long as we have mutual respect and we all admit that we are in this together, there are no bosses, there are no employees, we are all just in this together, then that will make a good company. Myth number 7 is that truckers are always alone. That may have been the case a long time ago, a few decades ago, but now with phones, internet, social networks, it all has changed. If you go to YouTube, for example, and that's where I like to be a lot, you can see a lot of truck drivers recording themselves, and you can talk to them as well. You can reach out to them. And when you go out to a truck stop, sometimes you meet someone, you exchange phone numbers, you talk to them. A lot of drivers tend to have friends or family members that also drive, so they talk a lot on the phone. And now we can also listen to podcasts when we are driving, audiobooks. That's what I used to do a lot. And sometimes I just didn't want someone to interrupt me either. If I was listening to a nice audiobook, I just wanted to concentrate on that. So that there were more calls sometimes than I wanted to answer. So right now, truck drivers are definitely not alone anymore. Thanks for watching. This is Anis from Never Stop Trucking. Check out the links in the description of this video if you want to support the channel. I'll see you guys around.